back. You're watching Prime Property. We are in conversation with Rajya Sabha MP Rajeev Chandrasekhar on the fine print of the Real Estate Regulator Bill. One of the biggest reasons that consumers have been so upset with their developers, the biggest grievance has been how projects have been late by 3 years, 4 years, the finances have gone out of whack, these people have taken home loans. So how does your bill empower consumers against project delays?
So Nayantara, there are two reasons for delays. One is that today, the builders, what they do is the moment they get a piece of land, they get a design or architecture or drawing, they start selling it to the consumer with an estimated delivery date, without factoring in what is legitimately their complaint that it takes much longer sometimes to get approvals from the local authorities than they had factored in. Now what we are saying in this bill is, you cannot start selling anything to anybody till you get all the approvals. So that now, after you get the approval, when you project a timeline to deliver, there is no excuse for you to get out of that. If you say, I will take 2 years, I am an efficient builder, I have great contractors, I have great project management skills, and I can do it in 1 year, then you commit to 1 year, charge a premium for that, and get the consumers contracted on that, but deliver on that contract. And if you say 1 year and you give it in 3 years, you will go through the bill and there will be penalties, there will be provisions, and if you are doing this repeatedly, you will even be blacklisted by the regulator. So it has made it very clear that there is an obligation on part of the builder to deliver on his promises. And there is a right of the consumer to seek fulfillment of the promises made by the builder, and these are now law. So if there is a breach in this contract between the builder and the consumer, you have recourse to penalties, and the regulator and the process is laid out in the bill.
How hefty are these penalties, Mr. Chandrasekhar? How hefty are these penalties?
No, look, the penalties range from imprisonment if you're a repeat offender and you're lying to the regulatory authorities, you're misrepresenting, so there is imprisonment. Then there are financial penalties. Now, we were careful that the financial penalties are not small enough to make it worth the while of builders in multi-billion, multi-crore projects to say, look, this is a nice little arbitrage, we will delay it and pay an insignificant penalty. So we've made the penalties, I don't recall the exact number for all of the penalties, all the offenses right now in front of me, but the penalties are sufficient disincentives.
You have also recommended imprisonment of up to 1 year for home buyers. On what kind of violations will that happen?
I suspect that is on vexatious allegations and against builders and so on and so forth. I missed the exact clause here. Sorry, but that just escaped my mind as you were speaking. But there is a particular clause there that targets home buyers for basically misrepresenting claims against the home buyer, against the builder.
Rajeev Chandrasekhar, this should not come as a surprise to you, but the builder lobby is quite upset that you've decided to make ongoing projects also come under the ambit of the real estate regulator. In fact, we've just got a press release from the industry body CREDI, which says bringing ongoing projects under the legislation would mean stopping the work and ensuring the compliance of ongoing projects with the new legislation. This is not only time-consuming, but also poses difficulties in determining the nature and scope of regulation for ongoing projects. Do you think this is an argument worthy enough for you to have a second look? Or
No, look, Nayantara, I think I have had to deal with the telecom sector some years ago when I proposed auctions, and they came out and said the same, complaints of cost going up and all of that. But this is a natural reaction from an industry that is now for the first time being exposed to regulation, that is first time being exposed to legal obligation, first time being exposed to the concept of consumer rights. It is not unusual for them to be worried. It is not unusual for them to complain a little bit. But I can tell you one thing, as I have told many builders who met me and the select committee during our meetings, that this is a fundamental restructuring of the industry. It is not business as usual. There are new rules in the game where consumers have to be respected and protected. Whether the consumers are consumers of old projects, new projects, future projects, does not matter, because at the heart of this is the concept of consumer protection and builder obligation. So there is no logic to classifying projects as pre this bill and post this bill. Consumers of today are consumers of today, whether they have been contracted 2 years ago for projects that are still to be delivered, or they are consumers that are to be contracted for projects that will be delivered, signed up tomorrow. So consumers who have not been given their flats and have not been delivered will come under the ambit of this law. So will the builders who have not delivered the flats so far.
You know, one of the biggest grievances of consumers has been that builders midway change projects, that they know the FAR is going up, so they add more stories, and therefore the market value of their investment goes down, the project gets delayed. Have you looked into this issue at all?
Yeah, absolutely. There is absolutely none of that is possible anymore. There is a clear plan that has to be submitted up front. It has to be approved. All the planning approvals have to be sought and received by the builder. Only then can the builder go ahead and market that to the consumer. And once that is marketed to the consumer, any changes to the plan, any changes to what has been offered has to be approved by the 2/3 of all the buyers of that project. It cannot be done by the builder or suo moto. It cannot be done by 4 of the owners who have bought bulk flats in that project. So it is absolutely impossible for builders to play hooky with consumers anymore. I mean, this is something that we heard loud and clear during the select committee visits to consumers, that builders were doing this to them repeatedly, not just in one city, but in multiple cities to multiple groups of consumers. And I think the parliament heard that loud and clear and responded.
I think the other one where you have action response is where buyers must have told you how they have to pay 18% penalty for a late payment, but they only get 5 rupees a square foot as penalty from the builder once the project is delayed.
So we've equalized that.
I know that.
Yeah.
We've equalized that. Rajeev Chandrasekhar, how real is the fear that the states are not going to play ball and adopt the Model Act? You've not been able to, break that Babu Builder nexus, but it's prevalent and rampant in almost every state. And now it's up to the states to adopt this Model Act to maintain the spirit behind this act. How real is the fear that that could get diluted?
Okay, look, Nayantara, in some parts where where state governments and municipalities are so corrupt and so entrenched that they don't want to change and they have enough power not to change, they probably will continue business as usual. But the fact is, now there is a legislation even in those cities and those states where the consumers have the power to hold the builder to account. And it is these, look, let's be very honest and clear. Builders have tremendous influence on local governments. Builders have tremendous influence and power over state governments. If they feel the pressure, they will definitely put the pressure on state governments and municipal governments to reform and get their act together. This is my contention and my belief, and I believe that reforms start like this, start at the top and then move the way down and influence change even at the bottom where you don't think change is possible.
Okay, I'm not so convinced that that's going to happen. It perhaps to be, I think, forced on them, or maybe I'm just disillusioned.
We will compare notes in a few years.
Yeah, we should agree to disagree. Thank you, Mr. Chandrasekhar, for joining us on CNBC-TV18.
Thank you.
I do hope all of you consumers now have better clarity and know your rights. With that, it's time for another short commercial break. We are back in 2 minutes, and we're going to continue getting your reactions on the real estate regulator.